A digital camera is a camera that encodes digital images and videos digitally and stores them for later reproduction. Most cameras sold today are digital, and digital cameras are incorporated into many devices ranging from PDAs and mobile phones to vehicles. Digital and film cameras share an optical system, typically using a lens with a variable diaphragm to focus light onto an image pickup device. The diaphragm and shutter admit the correct amount of light to the imager, just as with film, but the image pickup device is electronic rather than chemical. However, unlike film cameras, digital cameras can display images on a screen immediately after being recorded, and store and delete images from memory. Many digital cameras can also record moving videos with sound. Some digital cameras can crop and stitch pictures and perform other elementary image editing. History. Stephen Sasson, as an engineer at Eastman Kodak, invented and built the first electronic camera using a charge-coupled device image sensor in 1975. Earlier ones used a camera tube. Later ones digitized the signal. Early uses were mainly military and scientific, followed by medical and news applications. In the mid to late 1990s, digital cameras became common among consumers. By the mid-2000s, digital cameras had largely replaced film cameras, and higher-end cell phones had an integrated digital camera. By the beginning of the 2010s, smartphones had an integrated digital camera. Image sensors. The two major types of digital image sensor are CCD and CMOS. A CCD sensor has one amplifier for all the pixels, while each pixel in a CMOS active pixel sensor has its own amplifier. Compared to CCDs, CMOS sensors use less power. Some modern cameras use backside illuminated CMOS sensors which use light more efficiently. The final image quality is more dependent on the image processing capability of the camera. Sensor resolution. The resolution of a digital camera is often limited by the image sensor that turns light into discrete signals. The brighter the image at a given point on the sensor, the larger the value that is read for the pixel. Depending on the physical structure of the sensor, a color filter array may be used, which requires demersumicing to recreate a full-color image. The number of pixels in the sensor determines the camera's pixel count. In a typical sensor, the pixel count is the product of the number of rows and the number of columns. For example, a 1000 by 1000 pixel sensor would have 1 million pixels, or 1 megapixel. Methods of image capture. Since the first digital backs were introduced, there have been three main methods of capturing the image, each based on the hardware configuration of the sensor and color filters. Single-shot capture systems use either one sensor chip with a bare filter mosaic, or three separate image sensors which are exposed to the same image via a beam splitter. Multi-shot exposes the sensor to the image in a sequence of three or more openings of the lens aperture. There are several methods of application of the multi-shot technique. The most common originally was to use a single image sensor with three filters passed in front of the sensor in sequence to obtain the additive color information. Another multiple-shot method is called microscanning. This method uses a single sensor chip with a bare filter and physically moved the sensor on the focus plane of the lens to construct a higher resolution image than the native resolution of the chip. A third version combined the two methods without a bare filter on the chip. The third method is called scanning because the sensor moves across the focal plane much like the sensor of an image scanner. The linear or trilinear sensors in scanning cameras utilize only a single line of photosensors, or three lines for the three colors. Scanning may be accomplished by moving the sensor or by rotating the whole camera. A digital rotating line camera offers images of very high total resolution. The choice of method for a given capture is determined largely by the subject matter. It is usually inappropriate to attempt to capture a subject that moves with anything but a single-shot system. However, the higher color fidelity and larger file sizes and resolutions available with multi-shot and scanning backs make them attractive for commercial photographers working with stationary subjects and large-format photographs. Improvements in single-shot cameras and image file processing at the beginning of the 21st century made single-shot cameras almost completely dominant, even in high-end commercial photography. Filter mosaics, interpolation, and aliasing. Most current consumer digital cameras use a Bayer filter mosaic in combination with an optical anti-aliasing filter to reduce the aliasing due to the reduced sampling of the different primary color images. A demosaicing algorithm is used to interpolate color information to create a full array of RGB image data. Cameras that use a beam splitter single-shot 3CCD approach, 3-filter multi-shot approach, color co-site sampling or Foveon X3 sensor do not use anti-aliasing filters, nor demosaicing. Firmware in the camera, or a software in a RAW converter program such as Adobe Camera Raw, interprets the raw data from the sensor to obtain a full color image, because the RGB color model requires 3 intensity values for each pixel, 1 each for the red, green, and blue. A single sensor element cannot simultaneously record these 3 intensities, and so a color filter array must be used to selectively filter a particular color for each pixel. The Bayer filter pattern is a repeating 2x2 mosaic pattern of light filters, with green ones at opposite corners and red and blue in the other 2 positions. The high proportion of green takes advantage of properties of the human visual system, which determines brightness mostly from green and is far more sensitive to brightness than to hue or saturation. Sometimes a 4-color filter pattern is used, often involving 2 different hues of green. This provides potentially more accurate color, but requires a slightly more complicated interpolation process. The color intensity values not captured for each pixel can be interpolated from the values of adjacent pixels which represent the color being calculated. Sensor size and angle of view. Cameras with digital image sensors that are smaller than the typical 35mm film size have a smaller field or angle of view when used with a lens of the same focal length. This is because angle of view is a function of both focal length and the sensor or film size used. The crop factor is relative to the 35mm film format. If a smaller sensor is used, as in most digicams, the field of view is cropped by the sensor to smaller than the 35mm full-frame format's field of view. This narrowing of the field of view may be described as crop factor, a factor by which a longer focal length lens would be needed to get the same field of view on a 35mm film camera. The result is geometrically similar to taking the image from the film camera and cutting it down to the size of the sensor. The amount of information captured is dependent on sensor density. For example, a camera with a 1/1.8-inch sensor has a 5.0x field of view crop. When it is mated with a 5 to 50mm zoom lens, it produces an image with field of view similar to those produced by a 35mm film camera with a 25-250mm lens. The smaller sensor reduces the captured field of view. Methods of compensating for this or otherwise producing wider digital photographs include using a fisheye lens and defishing the image in post-processing to simulate a rectilinear wide-angle lens. Full-frame digital SLRs utilize a sensor of the same size as a frame of 35mm film. Some examples of cameras are Canon 1DX, 1DS and 5D series, and 6D. Kodak Pro DCS14N. Nikon D3, D4, D600, D700 and D800 lines. And Contax and Digital. Common values for field of view crop in DSLRs using active pixel sensors include 1.3x for some Canon sensors, 1.5x for Sony APS-C sensors used by Nikon, Pentax and Konica Minolta, and for Fujifilm sensors, 1.6 for most Canon sensors, 1.7x for Sigma's Foveon sensors and 2x for Kodak and Panasonic 4/3-inch sensors currently used by Olympus and Panasonic. Crop factors for non-SLR consumer compact and bridge cameras are larger, frequently 4x or more. Types of digital cameras. Digital cameras come in a wide range of sizes, prices and capabilities. In addition to general-purpose digital cameras, specialized cameras including multispectral imaging equipment and astrographs are used for scientific, military, medical and other special purposes. Compact digital cameras. Compact cameras are intended to be portable and are particularly suitable for casual snapshot. Many incorporate a retractable lens assembly that provides optical zoom. In most models, an auto-actuating lens cover protects the lens from elements. Most ruggedized or water-resistant models do not retract, and most with capability do not retract fully. Some compact cameras have image stabilization. Compact cameras are usually designed to be easy to use. Almost all include an automatic mode, or auto mode, which automatically makes all camera settings for the user. It is common for current compact cameras to include more advanced features to accommodate users who desire more detailed control the camera's settings. Compact digital cameras typically contain a small sensor which trades off picture quality for compactness and simplicity. Images can usually only be stored using lossy compression. Most have a built-in flash, usually of low power, sufficient for nearby subjects. A few high-end compact digital cameras have a hot swith for connecting to an external flash. Live preview is almost always used to frame the photo on an integrated LCD display. In addition to being able to take still photographs, almost all compact cameras have the ability to record video. Compacts often have macro capability and zoom lenses, but the zoom range is generally enough for candid photography but less than is available on bridge cameras, or the interchangeable lenses of DSLR cameras available at a much higher cost. Autofocus systems in compact digital cameras generally are based on a contrast detection methodology using the image data from the live preview feed of the main imager. Some compact digital cameras use a hybrid autofocus system similar to what is commonly available on DSLRs. Typically, compact digital cameras incorporate a nearly silent leaf shutter into the lens but play a simulated camera sound for skeuomorphic purposes. For low cost and small size, these cameras typically use image sensor formats with a diagonal between 6 and 11 ohm, corresponding to a crop factor between 7 and 4. This gives them weaker low-light performance, greater depth of field, generally closer focusing ability, and smaller components than cameras using larger sensors. Some cameras use a larger sensor including, at the high end, a pricey full-frame sensor compact camera, such as Sony CyberShot DS-CRX1, but have capability near that of a DSLR. A variety of additional features are available depending on the model of the camera. Such features include ones such as GPS, compass, barometer and altimeter for above mean sea level or under water, mean sea level, and some are rugged and waterproof. Starting in 2011, some compact digital cameras can take 3D still photos. These 3D compact stereo cameras can capture 3D panoramic photos with dual lens or even single lens for playback on a 3D TV. In 2013, Sony released 2 add-on camera models without display, to be used with a smartphone or tablet, controlled by a mobile application via Wi-Fi. Bridge cameras. Bridge cameras physically resemble DSLRs, and are sometimes called DSLR shape or DSLR-like. They provide some similar features but, like compacts, they use a fixed lens and a small sensor. Some compact cameras have also PSAM mode. Most use live preview to frame the image. Their usual autofocus is by the same contrast detect mechanism as compacts, but many bridge cameras have a manual focus mode and some have a separate focus ring for greater control. Big physical size and small sensor allow super zoom and wide aperture. Bridge cams generally include an image stabilization system to enable longer handheld exposures, sometimes better than DSLR for low light condition. Bridge cameras are usually fitted with fixed lenses. Some have a lens thread to attach an accessory wide-angle or telephoto converters, but almost all bridge cameras can take photos at 24mm, 22mm or even 20mm, in 35mm equivalent terms, so practically lens thread is little used except for UV or circular polarizing filter and lentitude. The scene is composed by viewing the display or the electronic viewfinder. Most have a slightly longer shutter lag than a DSLR. Many of these cameras can store images in a raw image format, or processed and JPEG compressed, or both. The majority have a built-in flash, but only a few have hot swith. In bright sun, the quality difference between a good compact camera and a digital SLR is minimal, but bridge cameras are more portable, cost less and have a similar zoom ability. Thus a bridge camera may better suit outdoor daytime activities, except when seeking professional quality photos. A 3D photo mode was introduced in 2011, whereby the camera automatically takes a second image from a slightly different perspective and provides a standard MPO file for stereo display. Mirrorless interchangeable lens cameras. In late 2008, a new type of camera emerged called mirrorless interchangeable lens camera, which uses various sensors and offers lens interchangeability. These are simpler and more compact than DSLRs due to not having a lens reflex system. MILC camera models are available with various sensor sizes including, a small 1/2.3-inch sensor, as is commonly used in bridge cameras such as the original Pentax Q. A 1-inch sensor. A micro 4/3 sensor. An APS-C sensor such as the Sony NEX series, Pentax K01, and Canon EOS-M. And some, such as the Sony Alpha 7, use a full-frame sensor. Olympus and Panasonic released many micro 4/3 cameras with interchangeable lenses which are fully compatible each other without any adapter, while the others have proprietary mounts. As of March 2014, MILC cameras are available which appeal to both amateurs and professionals. Modular cameras. Modular camera is also interchangeable, but the body of the camera has no sensor and a sensor is belong to interchangeable sensor lens. The first of the modular camera is Ricoh GXR. At CES 2013, Sakura International announced Polaroid M1836 1-inch-18 MP camera with interchangeable sensor lens which was like Ricoh GXR done with sensor and shutter are located in the lens. An adapter for micro 4/3, Nikon and K-mount lenses is planned to accommodate with the camera. There are also add-on for smartphones and is called as Modular Smart Camera. It only a sensor lens, add-on at smartphone and use the LCD display of smartphone as controller. Sony QX series, in January 2014 announced higher video and ISO firmware update for QX10 and QX100, but should be downloaded in PC Mac first and cannot directly to the smartphone. Kodak PixPro Smart Lens Camera Series, Vivicam Smart Lens Camera Series from Vivitar Sakura. Digital single-lens reflex cameras. Digital single-lens reflex cameras use a mirror to direct light from the lens through a separate optical viewfinder. The mirror is moved out of the way to direct the image to the sensor at the time of exposure. Autofocus is accomplished using sensors in the mirror box. Some DSLRs have a live view mode that allows framing using the screen with image from the sensor. These cameras have much larger sensors than the other types, typically 18 ohm to 36 ohm on the diagonal. This gives them superior low-light performance, less depth of field at a given aperture, and a larger size. They use interchangeable lenses for versatility. Some lenses are made for digital SLR use only. Digital single-lens translucent cameras. A DSLT uses a fixed translucent mirror instead of a moving reflexed mirror as in DSLR. A translucent mirror or transmissive mirror or semi-transparent mirror is a mirror which reflects the light to two things at the same time. It reflects it along the path to a pentaprism pentamirror which then goes to an optical viewfinder as is done with a reflex mirror in DSLR cameras. The translucent mirror also sends light along a second path to the sensor. The total amount of light is not changes, just some of the light travels one path and some of it travels the other. The consequences is that DSLT cameras should shoot a half-stop differently from DSLR, but in practice there are no significant differences between DSLT and DSLR. One advantage of using a DSLT camera is the blind moments a DSLR user experiences while the reflecting mirror is moved to send the light to the sensor instead of the viewfinder do not exist for DSLT cameras. Because there is no time at which light is not traveling along both paths, DSLT cameras get the benefit of continuous autofocus tracking. This is especially beneficial for burst mode shooting in low light conditions. Until early 2014, only Sony had released DSLT cameras. By March 2014, Sony had released more DSLTs than DSLRs with a relatively complete lenses lineup, but with very limited support from third parties' lenses and very limited near fully compatible third parties' external flashes. Line scan camera systems. A line scan camera traditionally has a single row of pixel sensors, instead of a matrix of them. The lines are continuously fed to a computer that joins them to each other and makes an image. This is most commonly done by connecting the camera output to a frame grabber which resides in a PCI slot of an industrial computer. The frame grabber acts to buffer the image and sometimes provide some processing before delivering to the computer software for processing. Multiple rows of sensors may be used to make colored images, or to increase sensitivity by TDI. Many industrial applications require a wide field of view. Traditionally maintaining consistent light over large 2D areas is quite difficult. With a line scan camera all that is necessary is to provide even illumination across the AUOL in EUR currently being viewed by the camera. This makes possible sharp pictures of objects that pass the camera at high speed. Such cameras are also commonly used to make photo finishes, to determine the winner when multiple competitors cross the finishing line at nearly the same time. They can also be used as industrial instruments for analyzing fast processes. Digital rangefinders. A rangefinder is a user-operated optical mechanism to measure subject distance. Most digital cameras measure subject distance automatically using electro-optical techniques, but it is not customary to say that they have a rangefinder. Integration. Many devices have a built-in digital camera. For example, mobile phones, PDAs and laptop computers. Built-in cameras generally store the images in JPEG file format. Mobile phones incorporating digital cameras were introduced in Japan in 2001 by J-Phone. In 2003 camera phones outsold standalone digital cameras, and in 2006 they outsold film and digital standalone cameras. 5 billion camera phones were sold in 5 years, and by 2007 more than half of the installed base of all mobile phones were camera phones. Sales of separate cameras peaked in 2008. Waterproof. Waterproof digital cameras include those that can be totally submerged for underwater photography and those designed to operate in wet conditions on land. Many waterproof digital cameras are shockproof and resistant to low temperatures. Waterproof housings are available to protect non-waterproof cameras in wet or submerged conditions. Recent trends. Sales of traditional digital cameras have declined due to the increasing use of smartphones for casual photography, which also enable easier manipulation and sharing of photos through the use of apps and web-based services. Bridge cameras, in contrast, have held their ground with functionality that most smartphone cameras lack, such as optical zoom and other advanced features. DSLRs have also lost ground to mirrorless interchangeable lens cameras offering the same sensor size in a smaller camera. A few expensive ones use a full-frame sensor as DSLR professional cameras. In response to the convenience and flexibility of smartphone cameras, some manufacturers produced smart digital cameras that combine features of traditional cameras with those of a smartphone. In 2012, Nikon and Samsung released the Coolpix S800C and Galaxy Camera, the first two digital cameras to run the Android operating system. Since this software platform is used in many smartphones, they can integrate with services as smartphones do, and use other Android-compatible software as well. In an inversion, some phone makers have introduced smartphones with cameras designed to resemble traditional digital cameras. Nokia released the 808 PureView and Lumia 1020 in 2012 and 2013. The two devices respectively run the Symbian and Windows Phone operating systems, and both include a 41-megapixel camera. Similarly, Samsung introduced the Galaxy S4 Zoom, having a 16-megapixel camera and 10x optical zoom, combining traits from the Galaxy S4 Mini with the Galaxy camera. Light field cameras were introduced in 2013 with one consumer product and several professional ones. After a big dip of sales in 2012, consumer digital camera sales declined again in 2013 by 36%. In 2011, compact digital cameras sold 10 million per month. In 2013, sales fell to about 4 million per month. DSLR and MILC sales also declined in 2013 by €15% after almost 10 years of double-digit growth. These declines are attributed to the combination of superior software being available on smartphones and that the image quality on smartphones is good enough for most consumers. Connectivity, transferring photos. Many digital cameras can connect directly to a computer to transfer data. Early cameras used the PC serial port. USB is now the most widely used method, though some have a FireWire port. Some cameras use USB PTP mode for connection instead of USB MSC. Some offer both modes. Other cameras use wireless connections, via Bluetooth or IEEE 802.11 Wi-Fi, such as the Kodak EasyShare 1. Wi-Fi integrated memory cards transmit media content to computers or smartphones. Cameras with integrated Wi-Fi or specific Wi-Fi adapters mostly allow camera control, especially shutter release, exposure control and more from computer or smartphone apps additionally to the transfer of media data. Camera phones and some high-end standalone digital cameras also use cellular networks to connect for sharing images. The most common standard on cellular networks is the MMS multimedia messaging service, commonly called picture messaging. The second method with smartphones is to send a picture as an email attachment. Many camera phones do not support email, so this is less common. A common alternative is the use of a card reader which may be capable of reading several types of storage media, as well as high-speed transfer of data to the computer. Use of a card reader also avoids draining the camera battery during the download process. An external card reader allows convenient direct access to the images on a collection of storage media. But if only one storage card is in use, moving it back and forth between the camera and the reader can be inconvenient. Many computers have a card reader built in, at least for SD cards. Printing photos. Many modern cameras support the PictBridge standard, which allows them to send data directly to a PictBridge-capable computer printer without the need for a computer. Wireless connectivity can also provide for printing photos without a cable connection. Polaroid has introduced a printer integrated into its digital camera which creates a small, printed copy of a photo. This is reminiscent of the original instant camera, popularized by Polaroid in 1972. Displaying photos. Many digital cameras include a video output port. Usually S-video, it sends a standard definition video signal to a television, allowing the user to show one picture at a time. Buttons or menus on the camera allow the user to select the photo, advance from one to another, or automatically send a slideshow to the TV. HDMI has been adopted by many high-end digital camera makers, to show photos in their high-resolution quality on an HD TV. In January 2008, Silicon Image announced a new technology for sending video from mobile devices to a television in digital form. MHL sends pictures as a video stream, up to 1080p resolution, and is compatible with HDMI. Some DVD recorders and television sets can read memory cards used in cameras. Alternatively, several types of flash card readers have TV output capability. Modes. Many digital cameras have preset modes for different applications. Within the constraints of correct exposure, various parameters can be changed, including exposure, aperture, focusing, light metering, white balance, and equivalent sensitivity. For example, a portrait might use a wider aperture to render the background out of focus, and would seek out and focus on a human face rather than other image content. Image data storage. Many camera phones and most standalone digital cameras store image data in flash memory cards or other removable media. Most separate cameras use SD format, while a few use compact flash or other types. In January 2012, a faster XQD card format was announced. In early 2014, some high-end cameras have two hot swappable memory slots. Photographers can swap one of the memory card with camera on. Each memory slot can accept either compact flash or SD card. All new Sony cameras also have two memory slots, one for its memory stick and one for SD card, but not hot swappable. A few cameras used other removable storage such as microdrives, CD single, and 3.5 inches floppy disks. Other unusual formats include Onboard flash memory cheap cameras and cameras secondary to the device's main use, PC card hard drives early professional cameras, thermal printer known only in one model of camera that printed images immediately rather than storing. Most manufacturers of digital cameras do not provide drivers and software to allow their cameras to work with Linux or other free software. Still, many cameras use the standard USB storage protocol, and are thus easily usable. Other cameras are supported by the G-Photo project. File formats. The Joint Photography Experts Group standard is the most common file format for storing image data. Other file types include tagged image file format and various raw image formats. Many cameras, especially high-end ones, support a raw image format. A raw image is the unprocessed set of pixel data directly from the camera's sensor, often saved in a proprietary format. Adobe Systems has released the DNG format, a royalty-free raw image format used by at least 10 camera manufacturers. RAW files initially had to be processed in specialized image editing programs, but over time many mainstream editing programs, such as Google's Picasa, have added support for raw images. Rendering to standard images from raw sensor data allows more flexibility in making major adjustments without losing image quality or retaking the picture. Formats for movies are AVI, DV, MPEG, MOV, WMV, and ASF. Recent formats include MP4, which is based on the QuickTime format and uses newer compression algorithms to allow longer recording times in the same space. Other formats that are used in cameras but not for pictures are the design rule for camera format, an ISO specification for the camera's internal file structure and naming, and digital print order format, which dictates what order images are to be printed in and how many copies. Most cameras include EXIF data that provides metadata about the picture. EXIF data may include aperture, exposure time, focal length, date and time taken, and location. Batteries. Digital cameras have become smaller over time, resulting in an ongoing need to develop a battery small enough to fit in the camera and yet able to power it for a reasonable length of time. Digital cameras utilize either proprietary or standard consumer batteries. As of March 2014, most cameras use proprietary lithium-ion batteries while some use standard AA batteries or primarily use a proprietary lithium-ion rechargeable battery pack but have an optional AA battery holder available. Proprietary. The most common class of battery used in digital cameras is proprietary battery formats. These are built to a manufacturer's custom specifications. Almost all proprietary batteries are lithium-ion. In addition to being available from the OEM, aftermarket replacement batteries are commonly available for most camera models. Standard consumer batteries. Digital cameras that utilize off-the-shelf batteries are typically designed to be able to use both single-use disposable and rechargeable batteries, but not with both types in use at the same time. The most common off-the-shelf battery size used is AACR2, CRV3 batteries, and AAA batteries are also used in some cameras. The Creek 2 and CRV3 batteries are lithium-based, intended for a single use. Rechargeable CRV3 lithium-ion batteries are also available as an alternative to non-rechargeable CRV3 batteries. Some battery grips for DSLRs come with a separate holder to accommodate AA cells as an external power source. Conversion of film cameras to digital. When digital cameras became common, a question many photographers asked was whether their film cameras could be converted to digital. The answer was yes and no. For the majority of 35mm film cameras the answer is no, the reworking and cost would be too great, especially as lenses have been evolving as well as cameras. For most a conversion to digital, to give enough space for the electronics and allow a liquid crystal display to preview, would require removing the back of the camera and replacing it with a custom-built digital unit. Many early professional SLR cameras, such as the Kodak DCR series, were developed from 35mm film cameras. The technology of the time, however, meant that rather than being digital backs the bodies of these cameras were mounted on large, bulky digital units, often bigger than the camera portion itself. These were factory-built cameras, However, not aftermarket conversions. A notable exception is the Nikon E2, followed by Nikon E3, using additional optics to convert the 35mm format to a 2/3 CCD sensor. A few 35mm cameras have had digital camera backs made by their manufacturer, Leica being a notable example. Medium format and large format cameras have a low unit production, and typical digital backs for them cost over $10,000. These cameras also tend to be highly modular, with hand grips, film backs, winders, and lenses available separately to fit various needs. The very large sensor these backs use leads to enormous image sizes. For example, Phase 1's P4539OMP image back creates a single TIFF image of size up to 224.6 MB, and even greater pixel counts are available. Medium format digitals such as this are geared more towards studio and portrait photography than their smaller DSLR counterparts. The ISO speed in particular tends to have a maximum of 400, versus 6400 for some DSLR cameras. Digital camera backs. In the industrial and high-end professional photography market, some camera systems use modular image sensors. For example, some medium-format SLR cameras, such as the Modular 645D series, allow installation of either a digital camera back or a traditional photographic film back. Area Array, CCD, CMOS. Linear Array, CCD, 3-strip CCD with color filters. Linear array cameras are also called scan backs. Single-shot, multi-shot, most earlier digital camera backs used linear array sensors, moving vertically to digitize the image. Many of them only capture grayscale images. The relatively long exposure times, in the range of seconds or even minutes, generally limit scan backs to studio applications, where all aspects of the photographic scene are under the photographer's control. Some other camera backs use CCD arrays similar to typical cameras. These are called single-shot backs. Since it is much easier to manufacture a high-quality linear CCD array with only thousands of pixels than a CCD matrix with millions, very high-resolution linear CCD camera backs were available much earlier than their CCD matrix counterparts. For example, you could buy a camera back with over 7,000 pixel horizontal resolution in the mid-1990s. However, as of 2004, it is still difficult to buy a comparable CCD matrix camera of the same resolution. Rotating line cameras, with about 10,000 color pixels in its sensor line, are able, as of 2005, to capture about 120,000 lines during one full 360-degree rotation, thereby creating a single digital image of 1,200 megapixels. Most modern digital camera backs use CCD or CMOS matrix sensors. The matrix sensor captures the entire image frame at once, instead of incrementing scanning the frame area through the prolonged exposure. For example, Phase 1 produces a 39 million pixel digital camera back with a 49.1 x 36.8 on CCD in 2008. This CCD array is a little smaller than a frame of 120 film and much larger than a 35mm frame. In comparison, consumer digital cameras use arrays ranging from 36 x 24 mm to 1.28 x 0.96 on CMOS sensor. References. External links, media related to digital cameras at Wikimedia Commons.